This is the application we call Transifex, where basically the idea is you want to be able to see side by side the core language resources in the application. So I'll explain this very high level, but you can imagine when you build software, there's always going to be language within that software. So imagine login details, the word login, when you anything that is a part of the application interface that let's say isn't changing all the time, that native app language needs to be translated. So I'm going to actually just open Primero to just give you an example of what we're asking you to do. Anything that we configure or that we change at the implementation level, so like forms, so what we need you to translate first is all of this native language in the application, labels, the kinds of things that you get. I'll give you another example here. Imagine I go to edit this form and then I go to click off. Anything that is a message in the application, this type of stuff, is reflected in these strings, they're called. So what I would do is I would assign, these are the different languages we're working in, I would assign probably you to this Spanish project, and I'm gonna add members to the Spanish project here. So there's one coordinator. Currently there are no translators or reviewers. So I'm just going to add your email as the coordinator for this project. Okay. Now this will give you the ability to add translators, and I'll show you how to do that. But when you actually are doing the work, so now you're there as a coordinator, we have two other tiers. We have translators. We have one currently that did some translation for us, and we also have reviewers. And you can add yourself as a reviewer, or we can hire a reviewer. Sometimes it's good to have a person that knows child protection language. And it's very important, Estuardo, that there's consistency across the translation. So in this example, if you're using a specific word for assessment or referral, it needs to be consistent across the translation, or when you see the application rendered with your new translation, you're going to find a lot of errors in it. So I'm going to go back to the projects, and I'm going to go into the core one, which is Primero. And if I go on languages again, and I click on the Spanish one, it will take me to a breakdown of the different projects within the Spanish language. So there are application strings, and this is what I was explaining to you, the sort of native language in the application, the login, and if we look at that, we are 70% translated there. So none of it has been reviewed, but this is we'll go and look at the actual translation. There's a total of 6,683 words there, and they're broken up into 1,889 strings. Probably, I would say 50% of this is repetitive. And you don't have to be a good translator so much, because they're not sentences. It's not like you're translating a book, right? You're translating individual words, name, nombre, right? So it's quite straightforward that way. So what the user would do is that this is obviously a multilingual thing. We don't need to do that. The user would be they would be going into the strings, finding the untranslated content, You're looking for the word valid. The translation for valid, ¿se dice válido?
Válido, sí.
Hay un tilde, ¿no? O un acento.
In the A, la válido.
How do I do that on this keyboard? Anyways, I'm going to put
Yeah,
that, right? And then I
yeah.
would just click Save Translation. Obviously, that's going to be incorrect because it's missing the, right? And then I can literally move on to the next. Now it's green, and I can move on to the next one, right?
Okay.
Literally all that's required right now is translating these untranslated 556 strings. So doing that was one. Sometimes a string is going to have more than one word in it, but very often it's something that you don't have to do. You don't have to translate Arabic into Spanish. You
Hmm.
see what I mean?
Yeah.
So whoever's doing this, they would click on the untranslated string, they would go to this box. After they've typed their answer, they would click save, and then they move along to the next relevant one. So it does require them to understand a little bit um, what the application does, because obviously we don't need you to translate these labels. They need to
Hmm.
be in their original language. But for example, must be a valid number. Um,
Hmm.
this is not like an artistic translation. This should be, you don't need to be a qualified translator to do that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes you're going to see a bigger one like this. Now, this, for
Hmm.
example, would be like a pop-up. When you've done something in the application, it needs to advise you or warn you. This would be, for an example, this export provides a spreadsheet of the, so somebody needs to provide us with an informed translation. They would need to know what the application is designed to do to translate this properly. So they'd need to know that it's a child protection case management application to help manage records about, so that they would be able to provide us with an accurate translation for that. If I had to imagine, 556 strings, the majority of them are going to be one or two words, but then occasionally you'll have a longer one. So this would probably take somebody, a dedicated person, I would
Hmm.
say 5 hours maybe,
Really? To do all of
Hmm.
this?
maybe 5 to 10 hours
Yeah.
if they were doing just this.
Is there a way to filter out the ones that are in like Arabic and stuff? Okay.
Not that I know. You've got this row of sorting here
Yeah.
that sorts your, right now, as long as I'm on untranslated, it's just going to give me the next, the next, the next, and you can see that
Yeah.
it's a lot of them are single words, a lot of them are single words, but then occasionally you'll get a big block of text. And if we can get somebody on your end to do that, then once we're finished with the translation, the next thing we'll do is we'll get somebody to do a review of it, and the reviews are fast, um, because
Hmm.
reviewing is really just you're reading side by side that matches that. Once we have that to probably it will only ever get to 97% or something because we don't translate
Those.
things like this. You don't need to translate.
Yeah.
Um, then we'll take a look at it together, and then we'll have our under our contract we'll load this language translation up onto the application, and that will cover all of the in-app language and messaging. That will cover it. What we can't be certain about is when we change the forms, we do that at the field level. So the forms themselves, this is just for application strings. There's also for mobile. We have to do
Hmm.
that separately. You guys don't need the incident recorder, so we don't have to do that. This is for gender-based violence.
Okay.
That's it.